The Raptors win by the narrowest of margins in the APFL. The Epidemic Elephants explode for 200 plus points in the WRL. And we are in the semifinal round of the APBL World Series. All of this and more in 20 seconds. Hey fellow fanatics, welcome to the Fanatically Real broadcast sponsored by Sport Management Solutions, your one-stop shop for all your athletic communication needs. How is everybody on this Thursday night as we get ready for week 3 of Thursday night football coming up here very shortly? But before we get to that, we've got some broadcast stuff that we got to get to. Here is our agenda for the night. We're going to be talking about all things APFL week 2. Break down every single one of the regions in the WRL. We got a little bit of a week 24 update, which is the semifinal round of the APBL for you. We're going to talk about the FSA Sunday ticket for a little bit and then next week's broadcast. So let's get to it. Let's talk about all of the headlines that we had in the APFL. We led off with the biggest story probably of the week, and this was the Seattle Raptors escaping the defeat by the Chicago Monsters. I know it shows here 87-87. I'm going to have to get our updated our graphic generator to update this so we at least get 1 decimal point, maybe not even 2 on this. But the actual margin of victory by the Seattle Raptors was 0.46 points. Final score there was 87 even for the Seattle Raptors, 86.54 for the Chicago Monsters. Then the Buffalo and Vegas game was also very close. It ended up being a 2-point margin here, even though it shows 1 on the screen, again, because we had rounding in this one. But this is probably one of the closest games that Buffalo's had in recent memory. It's probably because we're having a little bit of an improved conference competition over on the AFC side, I would say. And speaking of the AFC side, the Denver-Miami game. So Miami entered this rematch with the Denver Mustangs seeking revenge for their 138-60 defeat in Week 10 of 2023. However, the result here was Denver still getting the win, 145-86. The 86 points by Miami represents a 26-point improvement over their previous meeting. Denver's 144 expanded their own offense ceiling from the last game. The 58-point margin, though 20 points better for Miami than the previous encounter, still constituted this week's highest scoring game. So these two teams playing against each other ended up being the highest scoring game of the week. I'm going to pull this off the screen for a second. I guess I'm not. Let me put me back up there and then I'll pull it up. I see Erica out there. Erica says, "Go Bills." I got to make sure that I'm clicking on the right thing to make sure it goes up there. Hey, Erica, how are you? Naughty Dogs on top this week. Bet on it, Sean says. Let's hope so, because when we get in there to look at it, I don't know if I've actually got the standings up there for you guys or not. I don't believe that I do, but how are the Naughty Dogs now? Are they 1-1, I think? And then MJ out there with us as well. MJ saying, "Evening, everyone." MJ, how are you? All right, let's get back to MJ says go Bills as well. I guess you all know who I'm picking for Thursday Night Football then. I definitely put this outfit on for a reason. Let's move on to some other highlights from the APFL, but probably not the name that you want to hear for a highlight. So we have the ugly game of the week. So Minnesota Rage secured their first victory under the new management, defeating the LA Bighorns. Again, rounding up, 69-51 was the actual score. Minnesota's 69 points won't impress statisticians, but survival often precedes success in franchise rebuilding. This team has cycled through 4 general managers in 4 seasons. Ugly wins represent progress worth celebrating. Sean says, don't look at mine. Daggone it. I got to remember to make sure I click on the right screen when I'm doing this. Don't look at mine, Sean says. MJ says, week 1, new firm exhausted. Thanks for asking. It's going to pop up here on the screen here in just a second. I've got the YouTube screen up so I can see when you all say it, but to get your all's messages up onto the screen, like we got Sean's up there right now, I got to wait just a little bit to get up there. So new firm, exhausting, but I'm going to assume that it was worth the move. I hope. Let us know. So we had the ugly game of the week. Now we're going to talk about the heartbreak game of the week, and that belongs to the Carolina Power Claws. So they scored 103 points, yet they still lost to the New York Mammoths. New York Mammoths scoring 119 points. So kind of epitomizes what's happening in the APFL right now. So even scoring over 100 points doesn't guarantee you a win, especially whenever you get somebody who can put up 119 points. MJ says ugly losses are the worst. So yeah, so the way that they do this, the ugly game of the week, so I've got a report that, let me pull my face back up here. I have a report that I have that runs at the end of the week whenever I want it to. And what it does is it gives the ugly game of the week so far for the year, and just happened to fall in on this week. And then the heartbreak game of the week again this week. So what it is the ugly game of the week is the team that scored really, really low points but still got the win. And then the heartbreak game of the week is the team that scored a whole lot of points but still got the loss. So in case you were wondering where those come from, those are those. So let's talk about this APFL playoff picture. So one of the things that I mentioned last week is we were going to have a new graphic this week. We do, in fact, have a new graphic. Went about a weird way of getting it this week, though. So one of the things that I've been trying to do as I'm building the website is create an FSA admin page that allows me to do a lot of automation with things, where these graphics are coming from, the report that I just talked about, where I get to see the ugly wins and the heartbreak game of the week. All of those things happen. One of the things that I was trying to work on to help myself and the director, Toby Keller, is to figure out how to get our APFL playoff picture. The reason it's such a pain in the butt when we do it by hand is because we use the NFL's tiebreaker rules, and it really is complicated whenever you sit down and look at it all. Complicated so much that I have input the tiebreaker rules into AI twice, and it still hasn't been able to spit out a correct answer for us yet. So what's probably going to happen after this week, because I've already changed the programming, is Toby and I will continue doing this by hand. And then once we have our 7 teams on both the AFC side and the NFC side, I reprogrammed my admin page for me to be able to just put in the 7 teams on each side, and it spits out the graphic. Now, what you're about to see is still not that. I didn't get that done until later on this afternoon. So the graphic you're about to see is the one that I built off of Photoshop after we figured out who those 7 teams were on both sides. So again, next week you will still see a different graphic, kind of close to this one, but it'll be after Toby and I do all of the tiebreakers by hand. So currently, if we were to go to the, that is not the right image, there we go. If we were to go to the playoffs this week, following week 2 of the APFL, these would be your seeds for both the AFC side and the NFC side. If you're wondering how we got here, go out and look up the NFL tiebreaker rules and you'll see. But if you want a deeper dive on this, hit us up on Discord. Both Toby and I will answer the questions for you. We'll explain to you why Pittsburgh is number 1 and Baltimore is number 5. We'll explain to you how New England slid in there at number 7. Same thing on the NFC side, why Philadelphia is number 7. I will say this. as much of a pain in the butt as it is to calculate this, it's also kind of fun. Now you know whenever you're watching NFL Sunday morning things as we get closer to the playoffs, how they're able to calculate these percentages of if they win, if they lose, chances of still making the playoffs. Because this really does give a mathematical percentage of the chances of them still making it in and stuff like that. It's definitely different than what you're used to seeing in a fantasy football league, where you do you do wins, losses, head to head, points for, and that's usually how it's done. It's definitely a different tiebreaker system. So we're going to go into week 3 of the APFL when we will be back into divisional play. So there are some AFC games that I want to highlight here. So we have the Miami Barracudas playing against the New England Rebels. The reason this is significant is the Barracudas have never lost to the Rebels. They are a flawless 6-0. Same thing between the Houston Toros and the Tennessee Spartans. Not only is Houston a perfect 6-0, their average margin of victory is 25 points. And then we have one more game that is the same way. The Las Vegas Marauders have never lost to the Kansas City Arrowheads. They're a perfect 6-0, and it's looking like it's going to be a mathematical mountain for the Arrowheads to climb. They have the league's worst 11-28 record in the 3 years of regular season in the APFL. Now, other games that don't quite have the same, undefeated feel to them. We also have the Pittsburgh Forge against the Baltimore Blackbirds. Both of these teams undefeated right now, so one of them is going to come away 2-1. We have the same kind of thing going on over in the NFC. So the most mathematically compelling matchup over here is going to be the undefeated powers that have championship pedigree. Green Bay Cheeseheads host the Detroit Pride. Both teams 2-0, both carrying that championship DNA that I just mentioned. Green Bay being the 2023 APFL champion, Detroit being the 2024 NFC champions. And historically, the two teams are tied up at 3-3 lifetime. And then we have something very similar going on between the Dallas Desperados and the New York Mammoths. That will complete the undefeated trilogy there. Both of those teams 2-0. And divisional title aspirations in on this one, because right now the New York Mammoths are sitting number 2 in the seeds in the playoffs, with Dallas sitting number 6, being second in the NFC East. All right, let's get into some of this WRL. Got 1 or 2 games per each one of the regions. And as always, we are going to start off with the Loch Ness region. So last week we had a team who did not set a lineup. This week they do. And it's pretty amazing what happens whenever you set a lineup. They end up getting the first win of the year. They end up beating Brady Sits Down to number 1, 158-130. That is the highlight game from the Loch Ness region. Got 2 for you in the Red Dragons region. First one we got here is the biggest fireworks of the week. The Epidemic Elephants exploded for that 204 points that we mentioned at the top of the show. It says 205 there because of the round. It was the most by any team this week in the WRL. Ended up beating Olave Garden 204-155. The combined 359 points between these two makes it the highest scoring game of week 2 as well. And then in the other game to highlight here, we also had the lowest scoring effort by a team this week, as the Lone Rangers only put up 76 points. It was 75 and some change on the way to their loss to the Cincinnati Bearcats. Score there 145-75. Got 1 for you in the Cerberus region. This game featured the tightest game of the week. They ended up belonging to the Charlie Potters and Lucky Ass Ferg. It shows 147 to 141 here. A little bit of a round again. Charlie Potters end up winning that game 146 to 141. A 5-point nail biter, the slimmest margin so far of the week, and dealing a very tough loss to Ferg and Lucky Ass Ferguson. And then we've got our final highlighted game of the week coming out of the Kraken's region. So even though that was the score over in the Cerberus region was tight, that was the closest one out of that region. I misspoke. This is the closest game in all of the WRL this week. End up happening to just the Ted's Lasso, last year's champion, just happened to be involved in this. That is the team down there you see with 161 points. So a little bit of a rounding here again. The actual final score of this game was 162.66 to 160.76. So the Roaring Lions getting that win by a 1.9 margin of victory. So you all saw this already over on Discord. What I'm going to end up showing you is the power rankings now, the top 25 from the WRL. I promised last week we were going to have a new graphic here as well. We do. But some of you were a little bit confused by it. So what you got going on here is your top 25, but we see there on the left-hand margin in the gray blocks are teams 2 through 25. The number one team being the Epidemic Elephants over there on the right side all by themselves. They moved up from the number 9 spot after that 204-point outburst that they had. And they currently share the best all-play record with the Maniacs, who happen to be sitting in number 2. They moved up from number 6. The Gridiron Grinders moved all the way up from 18 to number 3. Monarchs move up from number 8 to 4. And the Mantis Mayhem made their own big climb from number 16 all the way up to number 5. And then rounding out the rest of the top 10, we got the Charlie Potters, Turd Ferguson, Music City Miracles, Mad Scientist, and Groot. Before we move over to the APBL semifinals, let's talk about those primetime games for this week in the NFL. Of course, tonight, Thursday Night Football, we got Miami at Buffalo. You already know who I want to win this game. That's why I'm wearing the Buffalo gear. Now, the spreads that I'm about to give you were as of 5:30 p.m. East Coast time today. What's funny is the Buffalo point spread actually went down by a point from whenever I looked at it this afternoon, early this afternoon at 1:30. Buffalo now favored by 10.5. Sunday Night Football, we got Kansas City at the New York Giants. Kansas City favored there by 6.5. And then Monday Night Football, we got Detroit at Baltimore. Baltimore favored by 4.5. And in all of these games, I like the teams that are favored: Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore. This being week 3, we have no buys this week. I think we hit our first buys in week 5, so we still don't have to worry about it for one more week. All right, let's talk about that APBL Week 24 update. We are in the semifinal rounds of the World Series in the APBL. So last week, the Reds lost to the Angels, and now all of the 2 bye teams that were on bye last week are entering the bracket. The Rangers and the Angels are taking each other on as of 5:30 today, same time as whenever I check the point spreads. The Angels were up 130 to 123. MJ can probably tell us what the updated score is because she is the general manager of the LA Angels. I'm waiting for your thing to pop up here, MJ. I can see it over on the YouTube side. There it is. I'm just waiting for it to pop up on the Messenger side. So let us know if you have an update for that score. You were up 130 to 123. And then on the AL side, the Detroit Tigers end up beating the Baltimore Orioles last week. That means we now have a matchup between the Tigers and the New York Yankees, who sat idle last week. Last time I checked, the Yankees were up on the Tigers 202 to 116. Okay, so MJ says score is still the same. We have late games. Can you do me a check and then see what the scores might also be in the Yankees and Tigers game then? And let me know what that one looks like as well as I move on to the FSA Sunday Ticket. We'll talk about that just a little bit. So we now have a total of 32 people who have participated in it, some playing for their first time, but not until week 2. And then we had a few players from week 1 who did not submit their FSA Sunday Ticket for week 2. So I think we had 29 last week. So we had 3 new people come on and 3 people who did not put their confidence picks on their FSA Sunday Ticket pick 'em. So we're at 32 right now. The big winner last week was Jamie Serta, who was playing for his first time in week 2. He put up 90 points out of the possible 91 points. MJ says right now the Yankees are up 206 to 116, so they have gone up 4 points since my last check. Thank you, MJ. Appreciate it. So Jamie put up 90 points out of the possible 91 points. And as far as the season-long standings go, 2 weeks in, we have 2 people that are tied at the top with 159 points. If math serves me right, that's 159 out of the possible maximum 182. 2 people up there are Jonathan Broughton and myself. Sean says, I have a lot of catching up to do. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I think next week I might just end up having the screen open and just pop it up, or heck, maybe I'll automate something that will give us the top 10 in this as well, or something like that, and we'll figure out a way to make it look cool. Or maybe I'll just do a screen snippet and we'll just put it up here on this side and cover my face up and figure out what it looks like. So that is it. That is the show. Next broadcast is going to be on the 25th of September, which is next Thursday. We're going to stick with this Thursday thing because my Wednesday nights are taken up mostly by Aiken right now. So we'll be back again at 7:30 p.m. East Coast time, 25 September. In closing, I want to thank our sponsors. Thank you to Sport Management Solutions. They are your one-stop shop for all your athletic communication needs. They are our title sponsor. And then once again, for I can't even remember how many years in a row, we have to thank The Recast, who are the official music of the FSA. You get to hear their song, and our opening every single week. If you like tonight's show, make sure you go out and follow us on all of our social media. Like, subscribe, whatever it is that you got to do. And remember, we are Fanatically Real, and we will see you next week. Same time, same day, probably wearing something different. You all have a great night. Hit me up on Discord. Enjoy Thursday Night Football.